Hi, I'm Dutch Mandel with AutoWeek, and today we've got a really special guest. This is a man who has influenced and continues to influence probably more millennials and more unmillennials in terms of car passion than anyone else, and you may or may not have heard of him. This is John Wendl, who is a content director for Turn 10 Studios and the Forza Motorsport 3 franchise. He's the dad of Forza Motorsport. Welcome, John.
Thanks, glad to be here.
Why don't you tell the people out there just how big a deal this thing is? You've got an environment that you've created virtually, video games, and you've got passion like no one's business.
Well, at Turn 10, all of us are car guys. We love cars, everything about it, and we've built this franchise from the ground up. I was on the original Forza Motorsport 1 for the last 8 years working on this franchise, and it really has gotten to be huge. I mean, we've got over 400 cars in Forza 3, over 100 tracks. Thing's immense, and we've got an army of people working on it all over the world. At our peak of production, we were over 300 people working on this game at any one time, all over the globe, Asia, Europe, North America,
wow,
spanning the globe with car nuts everywhere, putting this thing together for our fans.
And you are a car guy. I mean, you race, correct?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, been a car guy ever since I was a little kid, you know, going to car shows, and Speed Racer was my favorite show. When I was a little kid, I was kind of hyperactive, and my mom would kind of go crazy, and when Speed Racer would come on, she would call it the quiet hour because it was the only time I would kind of sit there and watch.
So long as she didn't call you Spritel or Chim Chim, right, you'd be in great shape.
So the Mach 5 was my first hero car, and then, you know, it became the General Lee and all the way through, and then, yeah, I got a taste for motorsports and have raced motorcycles and cars, open wheel and closed wheel. Most recently, I raced a Spec Miata in the Northwest.
That's fantastic. That is really great. Well, AutoWeek has partnered with Microsoft, and that's only part of the reason why John's here. You spoke yesterday at our design forum and blew a lot of people away. When I say you influence a lot of folks, I mean, how many people are playing the Forza Motorsport franchise games?
Well, there's a ton. I mean, right now we've got over 2 million people playing Forza 3 alone, but believe it or not, there's still a lot of people that are playing Forza 2 that haven't upgraded to the new one, potentially even people that are playing the original one on the Xbox. Then we have our community at large, beyond just the Xbox 360. These guys are playing on ForzaMotorsport.net, kind of checking all the stats, learning everything that we're doing, seeing the screenshots, sharing their content. So the community really kind of grows even beyond just the people that are playing on the Xbox 360.
Well, today is kind of a monumental day, or maybe this week was for AutoWeek, because we, along with the Turn 10 people, launched the AutoWeek Car Show Pack to coincide with the North American International Auto Show. Why don't you take us through that a little bit?
Sure. We put this pack together. It's our second pack kind of coming out after the release of Forza Motorsport 3. We followed up the Hot Holidays pack with the Auto Show Car Pack, as you mentioned, with AutoWeek. And so far it's been a great success. It launched last Tuesday, I think, on the 12th. And I just got to walk the show floor yesterday at the show and see a lot of the cool cars that are out, and some of the same ones that are in our car pack, which is really cool. So that's been really exciting.
Well, and the first car that we are going to see, or we're seeing now, is the Lotus 211. Why was that? I mean, why is that the kind of thing that will excite a Forza enthusiast?
Well, from a high level, the coolest thing about downloadable content is even though Forza 3 is shipped back in October and it kind of stays the same, we can continue to keep the game fresh and relevant with these new cars. So the January car pack is packed with 2010, 2011 cars, so the game just keeps getting new and relevant. The Lotus in particular, I'm a real fan of, because one, I love the Lotus Elise. I got this close to buying one a while ago, and I was like, it can't be my primary driver. Our GM at the time,
who says? Well, maybe the wife and kids.
Yeah, exactly. Our GM at the time had one, and I got to drive his a few times, and man, I just fell in love with that car. And I've driven some cool cars, and the Elise is just such a cool car, and this car is just an extension beyond that, like the open cockpit, the ultimate track day car, which I think just so purpose-built. Is neat to see.
Now, one of the things that you're working on with Microsoft is this whole relationship, the Project Natal. Can you talk just briefly about that?
I can talk a little bit about it. Many of the details around Project Natal are still, we're kind of keeping quiet. We did announce at CES that we're going to be launching it this holiday coming up. And for the most part, we are trying to bring in a new type of customer to the platform that the controller has typically been kind of an inhibitor or a barrier to entry. If you think about it, like when I put my dad down in front of the Xbox 360, and a lot of
aliens. I mean,
yeah,
this is.
I mean, a lot of us grew up with a controller in our hand, and we get it. But the people who didn't, that is a pretty big barrier. And we've seen the success that systems like the Wii has had with kind of their wand. Well, we want to take it really to the whole other level, which is get rid of the controller. Period. You've been using your body your whole life.
Right.
Now that your body becomes the controller, and the motions that you do and control the games and your interactive experiences on the platform.
Well, let's go back to the AutoWeek Car Show Pack, because after all, it is all about AutoWeek. There are 10 cars. One of them is a Lotus. A couple of Audis are included in this as well, much like this RS6 that we see behind us.
Yeah, the beautiful new RS6. We've got a lot of Audi guys in the studio. Our studio manager drives an RS4. Our game director, Dan Greenwald, you've probably seen in the past. Yes. He drives a really souped-up S4. So a lot of Audi fans in the studio, and we're really excited to get the new RS6 in the pack.
That'd be fantastic. And there's also a BMW, as I believe, the M6.
So I'm more of a BMW fan. I kind of buck the trends with all the Audi guys in the studio, and my ultimate dream car is an M3. So I'm really glad to see the M6. We had used it, kind of the tuned version of it from Europe in our Forza 2 kind of video pieces and stuff, and I'm really glad to see kind of the official M6 come over.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, in order for our viewers, you to go out and really experience these cars, and this is the great thing about it, you can get into these cars, and the experience that you're going to feel from the Forza Motorsport 3 game is very, very similar to the experience that you're going to feel behind the wheel.
It really is. I mean, everything we do to build these cars, the way they look, the way they sound, the way they drive, we go to incredible lengths to get everything just perfect, the shape of the car. We digitally scan cars. We record them on a dyno under load so their engine sounds just the way they do when they're being strained. We get all their physics data, plug all that into the system so the car reacts and behaves exactly like it does in the real world. And it turns into a virtual test drive. Oftentimes, you can drive these cars in our game before they're even available. And in the case of the Raptor in our January car pack, it's kind of a sad story that that car may not see the light of day in production, but it lives on virtually in Forza Motorsport 3, so you can be the only people to drive it actually in our game, since it's not going to be available anytime soon to the general public. And my dream is to see something like that where the Raptor actually died because of kind of bureaucratic reasons.
Right.
For it to get such a following in a game like Forza that people get behind it and say, hey, bring back the Raptor, and kind of the bean counter somewhere see that and they see this momentum and say, hey, you know what, we got to build this car. Well,
if I'm, and we will leave on this, if I'm not mistaken, it was the digital passion for the Mitsubishi Evo that ultimately provided the company with the, I won't say cojones, but the impetus to bring the car over here.
Well, oftentimes I think American consumers get kind of misclassified with marketing guys. They don't think we're going to like the European version of the Ford Mondeo, right. So they give us the Contour and things like that. Sometimes I feel insulted by it. Other times, you know, I'm just depressed by it, I guess. But for a video game to be a vehicle to hopefully help American or American marketing executives see American public in a different light, to say, hey, yeah, the Evo might take off, or the GTR, the Skyline, there's a market. People will pay $80,000 for a Nissan if it's the right one.
Right.
And bring some of the cool cars from Europe over. The new Focus is a great example. Yeah. Done in conjunction with some of the European designers, I think is a great kind of meld of the two kind of cultures and building more of a world car. And I think that was one of the most striking cars at the show.
Well, and let's wait for the Focus RS, because that's going to be the hot car for guys like you and me who can really not afford to go racing. John, thank you very much for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
And that's another issue of AutoWeek Online.
Hi, I'm Deanna. Like this shirt I'm wearing? Well, show your pride and check out all the latest AutoWeek wearables and accessories at AutoWeek.com/gearstore. Everything you need to get in the fast lane at AutoWeek.com/gearstore. And remember, at AutoWeek, first means everything.